The large room was silent. Instructor Veltar stood at the front, looking at all the students with his 4 eyes. His voice was clear and strong when he spoke. "Listen carefully," he said. "For 400 years, this academy has given students one special test. We call it the Crucible. In all these years, not one single student has ever passed it. Not even one. 300 students sat in rows. They came from 70 different planets and looked very different from each other. Some had fur, some had scales, some had wings. Among them sat Hana Kim, a young human woman. She was 22 years old. Her black hair was tied back, and her dark eyes stared at the large black board behind the instructor. The board was made of shiny black stone. Thousands of names were carved into it. Every name belonged to someone who had failed the test. Hana could see names from every species in the galaxy. Humans, aliens, everyone had failed. "The test is simple," Veltar continued. "You will command a ship. The enemy will be much stronger than you. Your ship will be damaged. Your crew will be scared. You cannot win. The test is not about winning. It is about how you act when you lose. Do you lose with honor? That is what we want to see." Next to Hana sat Kivnel. She was from a planet called Thalor. She had thin wings like glass and big eyes that could see many things at once. She leaned close to Hana and whispered, "Humans are very bad at this test," Kivnel said quietly. "Your people have tried 37 times. Most humans try to fight anyway. They make things worse. They cause too many deaths in the simulation." Hana looked at her friend. "Maybe we are doing it wrong," she said softly. Over the next week, students took the test one by one. Hana watched them go into the simulation room. They always came out looking terrible. Some were shaking. Some were crying. Some just stared at nothing. The test was not just numbers and pictures. It made you feel everything. You felt the fear of your crew. You felt the pain when people died. You felt the weight of every choice you made. It was like real life, but worse because you knew you would lose no matter what you did. Doyen Park was Hana's best friend. He was also human. They had known each other since they first came to the academy. When Doyen finished his test, he looked sick. His hands shook as he held his food tray in the dining hall. "It is worse than they told us," Doyen said to Hana. "The computer that runs the test is very smart. Every plan I tried, it stopped me. Every sacrifice I made meant nothing. And the feeling. Hana, you feel everything. You feel your crew dying. It is like torture." "How long did you last?" Hana asked. 14 minutes. I tried to give up to save my crew. The enemy did not care. They killed everyone anyway." Doyen looked at his friend with tired eyes. "Do not try to win, Hana. Nobody wins. Just try to keep your dignity. That is all they want." But Hana did not listen to this advice. Instead, she spent all her free time in the library. She read about every student who had ever taken the test. She did not read about how they failed. She read about how the test responded to them. She made notes. She drew diagrams. She studied the computer program that controlled the enemy ships. And slowly she began to see something nobody had noticed in 400 years. The test had a weakness. It was not a mistake in the computer code. It was something deeper. The test was made by the Veltorians, the same species as Instructor Veltar. The Veltorians believed in honor and accepting defeat gracefully, but the Veltorians had never almost gone extinct. They had never been the weakest species fighting to survive. They had never been like humans. Humans came from a dangerous planet. For thousands of years, everything tried to kill humans. Big animals hunted them. Diseases killed them. The weather tried to freeze them or burn them. Other humans fought wars against them. Many times humans almost disappeared completely, but humans never gave up. When they should have died, they found a way to live. When they should have lost, they changed the rules. That was how humans survived long enough to reach the stars. On the morning of her test, Hana walked to the simulation room. She held a small data chip in her hand. It was against the rules to bring anything into the test, but nobody checked for data chips. Why would they? Nobody had ever tried to cheat on a test that was designed to make you fail. The chip contained star maps. It showed the location of every sun, planet, and moon in the test area. This information was public. Any real ship captain would have this data, but most students did not think to bring it. Hana stepped into the small room. It was round with a single chair in the middle. She sat down. The door closed behind her. "Cadet Kim," Veltar's voice came from speakers in the walls. "You may begin your test. Remember, there is no shame in accepting defeat with grace and honor." Hana touched the controls in front of her. The room disappeared. Suddenly, she was standing on the bridge of a spaceship. It was not real, but it felt real. She could smell the smoke. She could hear the alarms. She could feel the fear of the crew around her. Red lights flashed everywhere. A crew member shouted, "Captain, we have 30 enemy ships surrounding us. Our weapons are at half power. Shields are failing." Another voice said, "Engine 3 is destroyed. We cannot run away." This was how the test always started. The student was supposed to realize they could not win. They were supposed to try a few things, fail, and then surrender or die with dignity. But Hana smiled. She quickly put her data chip into the ship's computer. Information filled the screens around her. She saw the positions of all the stars and planets nearby. "All crew members, listen to me," Hana said in a calm, clear voice. "We are not going to fight. We are not going to surrender. We are going to do something completely different." The simulated crew members looked confused. One of them, a Zethian with 4 arms, said, "Captain, what do you mean?" Hana's fingers moved quickly across the controls. "I mean we are going to change the game," she said. In another room, Instructor Veltar watched Hana's test on a large screen. He could see everything happening inside the simulation. He could also see information about Hana's body, her heart rate, her breathing, her stress levels. Most students showed high stress at this point. Their hearts beat fast, they breathed quickly, they were scared. But Hana's numbers looked normal. She seemed calm. Veltar found this strange. On the screen, he watched Hana give orders to her crew. "Take all power from our weapons," she said. "Put everything into our communication system. I need to send messages as far as possible." Her tactical officer looked worried. He had 4 arms and was working several control panels at once. "Captain, if we do that, we will have no weapons. Our shields will fail. We will be completely defenseless." "Yes, I know," Hana said. "Do it anyway." Veltar leaned forward in his chair. This was unusual. Most students tried to fight. Some tried to run away. A few tried to talk to the enemy. But Hana was doing none of these things. "Engineering department," Hana continued, speaking to another part of her crew. "I need you to prepare our reactor for overload. Set a timer for exactly 7 minutes." Now Veltar's scales changed color. This was how his species showed emotion. He was concerned. An overload would make the ship explode. It would create a huge burst of energy. But why would she do this? Hana spoke to her science officer next. "Look at the star charts. There is a brown dwarf star at position 270 Mark 15. It is about 14 million kilometers from here. Tell me if I am right about its location." The science officer worked quickly. His eyes went wide. "Yes, Captain. But that star is not stable. If there is a big energy explosion near it, it could collapse. It could create a..." He stopped talking. He understood what she was planning. "Yes," Hana said with a cold smile. "It could create a supernova effect. A huge explosion that would destroy everything in this entire star system." Other instructors came into the observation room. They had heard something unusual was happening in Hana's test. One of them was Commander Jihoon Kang, a human professor. He stood with his arms crossed, watching the screen carefully. "She is going to use the star as a weapon," Jihoon said quietly. "I did not think that was possible in this test." "It should not be possible," Veltar said. His voice sounded strained. "The test is about accepting defeat, not about..." "The test is about character," Jihoon interrupted. "You wanted to see what kind of person she is. I think you are about to find out." Inside the simulation, Hana opened a communication channel. She broadcast her voice on every frequency. Every ship in the system could hear her. The enemy fleet could hear her. Any nearby stations could hear her. "Attention, enemy ships," she said. Her voice was calm and strong. "This is Captain Hana Kim of the ship Valiant. I am broadcasting to everyone because I want everyone to hear what happens next. You have hunted me. You have trapped me. You think you have won." She paused. "You are wrong." The enemy ships moved closer. The simulation's computer was doing exactly what it was programmed to do. It was moving in for the kill. "My ship is damaged," Hana continued. "My weapons do not work. By all normal rules, I should surrender or die with honor. But I am human, and humans do not follow normal rules. She touched her controls. Her ship began moving toward the brown dwarf star. It moved slowly, with no power, just drifting on momentum. My reactor will explode in 4 minutes, Hana said. When it does, the energy will make this star collapse. Everything in this system will be destroyed. My ship, your ships, everything. Nobody will survive. She let that information sink in. Then she continued. But before I die, I have sent all the information about your fleet to my headquarters. I have sent details about your weapons, your ships, your tactics. Even if you kill me, my people now know everything about you. They will use this information to defeat you in many future battles. In the observation room, Veltar's eyes were wide. This is not how the test is supposed to work, he said. She is rewriting the rules, Jihoon said. There was pride in his voice. She cannot win the battle, so she is winning the war instead. 3 minutes until explosion, Hana announced. You can attack me now, but if you do, the explosion will still happen, or you can retreat. You can move far enough away to survive. But you must choose quickly. 2 minutes and 45 seconds. The test's computer program faced a problem it had never encountered before. For 400 years it had been unbeatable. Every student who took the test lost. That was the point. But now, the computer had to choose. If it destroyed Hana's ship, the star would explode, and all the enemy ships would die too. If it retreated, the student would have forced it to run away. That would be a victory for the student. If it tried to board Hana's ship and stop the reactor, it would take too long and some ships would be destroyed. The computer was designed to be unbeatable in normal combat, but Hana had stopped playing normal combat. 2 minutes, Hana said calmly. I am sending you the safest paths to escape. You have about 1 minute to reach minimum safe distance. After that, anyone still close to the star will die with me. On Hana's ship, her crew looked at each other nervously. The tactical officer spoke. Captain, we could still stop the reactor overload. We have time to... No, Hana said firmly. If we show any weakness, they will know we are bluffing. This is not a bluff. I need everyone to understand that. I am not trying to save this ship. I am trying to save the next 100 ships that would face this enemy if we let them think they can always win by being stronger. The enemy fleet began to change formation. Some ships at the edges started to move away. They were accelerating, trying to escape. 1 minute, Hana announced. In the observation room, more people had arrived. Students had heard something unusual was happening. They pressed against the windows, watching the screens. 45 seconds, Hana said. Enemy flagship, you are now inside the danger zone. If you run now, you might survive with heavy damage. Stay any longer and you will definitely die. The largest enemy ship, the flagship, seemed to hesitate. Its engines powered up. For a moment, it looked like it might attack Hana's ship anyway. Hana's hand moved toward a button that would speed up the countdown. She was ready to make the explosion happen sooner if needed. Then the flagship turned around. It joined the other enemy ships that were fleeing. The entire fleet was retreating at maximum speed. Hana allowed herself a small smile. All enemy ships have left the danger zone, she said to her crew. Engineering, cancel the reactor overload. Helm, set a course to our rally point. Communications, send our status report to headquarters, along with all the intelligence data we gathered. Her tactical officer looked amazed. Captain, we are alive. We survived. Yes, Hana confirmed. And we completed our mission. We gathered information about the enemy and forced them to retreat. By any definition, this is a victory. The simulation did not end. It just froze. The computer had no instructions for what to do when a student won. For 400 years, students either died or surrendered. Hana Kim had done neither. Instructor Veltar pressed a button. The simulation ended. The fake spaceship bridge disappeared. Hana sat alone in the small round room, still in the chair. Her clothes were slightly wet with sweat, but she looked calm. Her eyes were bright and alert. The door opened. Veltar stood there. His scales kept changing colors. In his species, this meant he was feeling many emotions at once: confusion, concern, and perhaps a little bit of respect. "Cadet Kim," he said slowly. "Please come with me." Hana stood up. Her legs felt a bit unsteady after sitting still during the intense simulation. She stepped out of the room and saw a crowd of students in the hallway. 300 students from 70 different planets. All of them were staring at her silently. Then Doyun started clapping. Slowly, other students joined him. First the humans, then students from other species. Soon the entire hallway echoed with applause. Hana walked through the crowd following Instructor Veltar. She kept her face neutral, showing no emotion. But inside, her heart was beating very fast.
She had no idea if she had passed or failed.
She had broken every rule of the test. She had rejected everything the test was supposed to teach. She had refused to accept the impossible. 3 hours later, Hana sat on a bench outside the council chamber. This was where the instructors met to make important decisions. The doors were closed. She could hear voices inside, but she could not understand what they were saying. Students walked past her in groups. They whispered and pointed. Some looked at her with admiration. Others looked suspicious. A few seemed angry. Doyun sat with her for the first hour. Then Hana told him to leave. "Go to your classes," she said. "There is no reason for both of us to be marked absent." Kivanel brought her lunch. A protein bar and water. "Everyone in the academy is talking about you," her roommate said. Her thin wings were fluttering with excitement. "Some people are calling you a genius. Others are calling you a cheater." Professor Takana got very angry when someone asked her opinion. She walked out of her lecture. Hana ate the protein bar slowly and said nothing. Inside the council chamber, 7 instructors from 5 different species sat around a large curved table. They were arguing. She cheated. Instructor Takana's scales had turned deep purple. This meant she was very angry. The data chip she brought into the test contained information she should not have had. She had an unfair advantage. Commander Ji-hoon leaned forward. The chip contained public star charts. Any ship captain would have this information. "We are not testing her memory. We are testing her decision-making. The test is designed to be failed," Veltar said. His voice sounded tired. "That is the whole point. We teach our students that sometimes defeat cannot be avoided. We teach them to handle failure with grace." "Then perhaps," said a new voice, "the test is wrong." Everyone turned to look at Master Instructor Haiwen Choi. She was an old human woman. She had been a ship captain during Great Wars. She had taught at the academy for 60 years. When she spoke, people listened. "Explain," Veltar said carefully. Hwan stood up slowly. Her body was old, but her mind was sharp. She walked to a large screen and displayed the recording of Hana's test. "What did we learn about Cadet Kim from this test?" she asked. "That she is reckless," Takana said. "She was willing to risk everything on a dangerous plan." "That she is creative," Ji-hoon said. "She found a solution nobody else saw." "That she does not follow orders," Veltar added. "The test told her to accept defeat with honor. She completely rejected that instruction." Hwan nodded. "All true, but here is what I saw. Cadet Kim did what every military commander should do. She protected her crew. She gathered information about the enemy. She forced the enemy to retreat. She did not lose a single person. She did what 400 years of brilliant students could not do. And why? Because she asked a question nobody else thought to ask." "What question?" asked another instructor, a creature named Molrek with many eyes. Haiwan looked at each instructor in turn. She asked, "Why should I play by their rules? When for 400 years we have taught students to accept impossible situations. But in real war there are no impossible situations. There is only impossible thinking. Every battle humanity has won was won by someone who refused to accept that defeat was certain." She showed images on the screen, old Earth history. Humans have faced extinction many times. Big enemies, terrible diseases, wars that should have killed everyone. But humans survived because someone always refused to give up. Someone always found a different way. Veltar's scales rippled. "You are saying the test itself is wrong?" "I am saying," Haiwan spoke carefully, "that the test shows our assumptions. The Veltorians created this test based on your values: honor, acceptance, grace, and defeat. These are good values, but they are not universal. Humans reached the stars because we refused to accept extinction. That stubbornness is part of who we are. She sat back down. Cadet Kim did not fail the test. She showed us that the test has been asking the wrong question. The room was silent. Through the large windows, they could see the two suns setting. The sky turned beautiful colors. Instructor Mulrek spoke thoughtfully. So we must decide. Do we punish a student for rejecting our basic assumption, or do we accept that rejecting false assumptions is a valuable skill? It creates a bad example, Takana argued. If we reward this, every future student will try to cheat instead of learning the lesson. Let them try, Jihoon said with a small smile. Kim spent weeks studying every past attempt. She found a weakness in our computer program that none of us noticed in 400 years. That kind of analytical thinking combined with creative tactics, that is exactly what we should encourage. Veltar stood. He looked tired. Then we must vote. The question is simple. Did Cadet Hana Kim pass or fail the test? Hyewon raised her hand. Before we vote, think about this. Outside this room, 300 students are waiting. Many of them are human. They have watched their species fail this test for 30 years. What message do we send them today? Do we tell them their instincts are wrong, that refusing to surrender is a flaw? Or do we accept that different species have different strengths, and humanity's strength is finding a third option when others see only two? The vote was taken. It was not unanimous, but it was clear. 5 votes in favor. 2 against. Hana Kim had passed the test. Outside, as the twin suns finally set completely, Hana saw the council chamber doors open. Instructor Veltar came out first. His scales were now a neutral gray color. Behind him came the other instructors. Cadet Kim, Veltar said formally, please follow us. They walked through the academy's hallways. Hana noticed they were not going to the offices or to the disciplinary room. They were going to the central arena, the same large room where Veltar had first explained the test. When the doors opened, Hana stopped in surprise. The entire student body was there. All 300 students stood in neat rows. Above them, in the viewing galleries, stood teachers and staff. Even the academy's commandant was there. Hana's heart sank. She thought they were going to punish her publicly. They were going to use her as an example of what not to do. Veltar led Hana to the center of the arena floor. Directly in front of her stood the massive warning board. It was made of black stone that looked like glass. Thousands of names were carved into it. Every student who had failed the test in 400 years. Every species. Every failure. All recorded forever. The Academy's commandant stepped forward. His name was Elder Wisdom in Battle. He was from a species called the Jektari. His body was made of crystal that glowed with soft light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like music. Cadet Hana Kim, the commandant said. His voice filled the entire arena. You have completed the Crucible test. The Council of Instructors has reviewed what you did. They have made their decision. Hana stood straight and still. She looked at the warning board. In the shiny black surface, she could see her own reflection. She looked small against all those thousands of names. For 400 years, the commandant continued. This test has taught our students one lesson. When defeat cannot be avoided, it must be accepted with grace and honor. Here it comes, Hana thought. The rejection. They are going to dismiss me from the academy. Today, the commandant said, and his tone changed. You have taught us a different lesson. You have shown us that what we thought was impossible was only improbable. What we thought was inevitable was only assumed. Hana's eyes widened slightly. She could feel the atmosphere in the room change. The council has voted, the commandant announced. By a majority decision, you have passed the Crucible test. Your creative thinking, your strategic planning, and your refusal to accept false limits are exactly the qualities we need in our officers. A sound rippled through the assembled students. Whispers, gasps. Hana felt her legs go weak, but she kept standing straight. She could not quite believe what she was hearing. However, the commandant continued, there is a problem. This board behind you is called the Warning Board. It records all who have failed the Crucible. It reminds us that even the best people face situations they cannot control. A platform floated down from the ceiling. It carried a laser tool used for carving stone. You have passed where everyone else failed. Tradition says your name should not be on this board, but you have also challenged the very idea this board represents. The commandant's crystal body shifted, light moving through it in complex patterns. Master Instructor Hyewon has suggested a solution. Cadet Kim, please step forward. Hana walked closer to the warning board. Her heart was pounding. Master Instructor Hyewon stood beside the carving tool. The old woman's face showed a small smile. "This board records failures," Hyewon said. Her voice was clear and strong despite her age. "But what you did, Cadet Kim, was not a failure. It was a reminder. A reminder that the word impossible is not a fact. It is a challenge." She pointed to the board. "Today we add a new section. Not at the bottom with the failures. At the top. A new title that every student will see first, before they see all those thousands of failures." The laser tool turned on. Its beam began cutting into the black stone at the very top of the board. Letters appeared, each one a foot tall, impossible to miss. The letters read, "Crucible Test, Those Who Changed the Game." Below this title, the tool carved a single name, Cadet Hana Kim, Human, Year 400. The arena exploded with noise. Students cheered. Instructors clapped. Even some of the traditional Velatorian teachers showed respect in the way their scales rippled. Hana stared at her name carved in the black stone. She saw the empty space left below it for others who might follow. Tears came to her eyes. Not tears of relief, though she felt that. Not tears of joy, though she felt that too. These were tears of vindication. For every human who had taken this test and felt like they failed their species. For every person who was told their stubbornness was bad. For everyone who was told to accept the impossible and dared to ask why. "Your name will stay here," the commandant said warmly. "It will remind all future students that impossible is not inevitable. Sometimes the greatest victory is refusing to play by rules designed to make you lose." He paused, then added what might have been a joke. "Though I suspect our computer programmers will work very hard to make sure the next person who tries to use a star as a weapon will have a more difficult time." Laughter filled the arena. Hana allowed herself a small smile. She was still staring at her name in the stone. "Dismissed," the commandant said. The formal assembly ended. Students rushed forward, wanting to see the new inscription, to touch the board, to be near this moment in history. 6 months passed. Hana stood on an observation deck, looking out at space. Graduation was only 3 weeks away. She had been given a special job helping to design new training exercises for students. It was ironic, she thought. The person who broke the biggest training test was now helping create new ones. "People are still talking about you," Doyen said. He had come to stand beside her. He had passed his test the traditional way, accepting defeat with grace. But he had told her later that he wished he had her courage to question it. "Let me guess," Hana said with a slight smile. "The government is still debating whether I should have failed?" "No," Doyen said. He showed her a news feed on his tablet. "They are debating whether to redesign the entire test. 5 different species have sent proposals, and humans want to make every scenario winnable if you are creative enough." Hana laughed. "Of course we do. That is how humans think. We spent our entire history facing extinction. Dangerous animals, diseases, climate disasters, wars, asteroids. Any one of those things should have killed us. But we are still here because someone always refused to accept that we were finished." "Were you thinking about human history during the test?" Doyen asked. Hana shook her head. "I was thinking about my grandmother. She survived a war on Earth. A building collapsed on her. She was trapped for 3 days. Rescue crews gave up. They said nobody could survive that long." She smiled at the memory. She dug herself out with her bare hands. "When I was little, she told me something I never forgot. She said, 'Hana, people will tell you things are impossible. Usually they just mean it is hard, and they do not want to try. Never listen to them.'" A notification beeped on the console. Hana looked at the screen and caught her breath. "What is it?" Doyen asked. "Cadet Jiwon Lee just finished the Crucible test," Hana said quietly. "She passed." Doyen's eyes went wide. "How?" Hana read the report quickly. "She used the debris field. Turned the wreckage into weapons using gravity. She made the enemy fleet shoot their own support ships." She looked up with a big smile. Jiwon saw what I did and asked herself what else was possible. "They will have to add another name to the board," Doyen said. "Good," Hana said firmly. "That is exactly what should happen." Over the next 2 weeks, 3 more students passed the test. Each one found a different creative solution. The warning board was becoming something new. It was no longer just a warning. It was a challenge. On graduation day, Hana stood with her class. She was now Ensign Hana Kim of the Galactic Defense Force. The ceremony was held in the central arena. She looked at the board. 7 names were now carved at the top. Below them, the thousands of other names seemed less intimidating. They were not just failures anymore. They were learning experiences, steps toward success. After the ceremony, Master Instructor HFY approached Hana. The old woman moved slowly, but her eyes were still sharp. "Ensign Kim," she said formally. Then she smiled. "I wanted to thank you." Hana looked surprised. "Thank me? For what?" "For reminding me why I became a teacher." HFY looked at the board where young students gathered around the new names. "For 60 years, I watched brilliant students learn to accept defeat. It was depressing. Then you came and asked the question I forgot to ask. Why should we teach them to accept it?" She handed Hana a data chip. "This is your first assignment. Captain Youngmi Beck of the exploration ship Horizon has requested you specifically. She is mapping unknown space, first contact with new species. The frontier." Hana took the chip. Her heart raced. The frontier was where legends were made. Week 8 did not go well. Everything was working fine until it suddenly was not. Hana had been feeling good about the program. The 30 cadets were learning quickly. They were solving problems in new ways. Some of them even started using creative thinking in their other classes. Teachers noticed. Students talked about it. The Strategic Innovation Initiative was becoming popular. Then Essa made a mistake. Essa was a Lumerian cadet. Her species communicated using light patterns. She was smart and creative. She loved the program. She was one of the best students. During one exercise, she found a brilliant solution to a hard problem. Hana praised her work. Everyone thought Essa understood the lessons perfectly. But 2 days later, something bad happened. Essa was in her regular navigation class. The teacher, Commander Torval, gave them a normal exercise. It was about emergency ship movements. There was a standard way to solve it. The standard way worked fine, but Essa did not use the standard way. Instead, Essa tried something creative. She suggested using the ship's gravity generators as emergency engines. It was a clever idea. It showed creative thinking. But it was completely wrong for this situation. The problem had a simple solution. Essa made it complicated for no good reason. Commander Torval failed her on the exercise. He was angry. He filed an official complaint with the Academy. His complaint said that the human program was dangerous. It taught cadets to ignore good rules. It made them complicate simple problems. Essa was a good student before. Now she questioned everything, even when questioning was not needed. The Academy stopped the program immediately. They called it a suspension pending investigation. That meant the program could not continue until they decided if it was safe. Hana and her 3 friends were called to appear before the faculty council. This was serious. The council could end the program forever. They could punish the 4 humans. They could even expel them from the academy. The hearing room was large and cold. 15 senior instructors sat in a half circle. They looked down at Hana from their high seats. Most of them had never wanted the human program to exist. Now they had proof it was failing. Instructor Velthar spoke first. His voice was satisfied. He had warned everyone about this. He clicked his mandibles and said the humans were teaching cadets to be reckless, to choose novelty over function, to question rules just because questioning had become a habit. He said this was exactly what he feared would happen. Commander Torval agreed. He said Essa was a brilliant student, but after joining the human program, she started doubting herself on simple tasks. She looked for problems that did not exist. She wanted to use creative solutions even when they were not needed. This was not adaptive thinking. This was wasteful overthinking. Hana sat in the chair facing all of them. She felt the weight of their stares. Jiho, Minji, and Taeyang sat beside her. They all knew this was bad, very bad. The program they built was being attacked. If they defended it badly, everything would end. Commandant Threlzon asked Hana to respond. Hana stood up. Her mind worked fast. She could defend the program. She could say this was just one mistake. She could argue that Essa misunderstood the lessons. All of these arguments were true. But then Hana realized something important. These arguments missed the real point. The problem was not that Essa made a mistake. The problem was that the program taught her to make that kind of mistake. Hana took a deep breath and said something nobody expected. She said they were right. The room went silent. That was not the response anyone thought she would give. Hana continued. She said Instructor Velthar and Commander Torval were both correct. The program failed Essa. It failed her by teaching creative thinking without teaching when to use it. They showed her how to think differently, but not when different thinking was needed. They taught the method but not the judgment. She turned to face the full council. She admitted the program had a serious flaw. They focused too much on teaching creativity. They did not teach enough about when normal methods were good enough. This was not a small oversight. This was a critical failure that could lead to bad decisions. Velthar looked confused. He expected her to fight back, not agree. One council member asked if she was admitting the program was broken. Hana said yes, but not in the way they thought. She explained that the program was not wrong to teach creative problem-solving. It was incomplete. It did not teach discrimination. It did not teach when to use these techniques and when to stick with standard rules. That was the missing piece. Hana showed them their teaching framework on a holographic screen. She pointed to the first step, which said recognize when standard rules might not work. She admitted they failed to emphasize the other side. They should have taught cadets to recognize when standard rules work perfectly fine. Jiho stood up to join her. He said this was actually a common human problem. Humans get excited about innovation. Sometimes they forget that old ways can be the best ways. They should have built this principle into the program from the very beginning. Minji added that if they got another chance, they would add a new module. It would be called Protocol Assessment and Selection. It would teach cadets a decision tree. First question, is there a standard rule that works for this situation? If yes, use it. If no, then use creative thinking. If uncertain, use the standard rule while thinking about alternatives. Try the door before climbing through the window. Taeyang showed a mock-up of the new module on screen. It would teach selective creativity, not universal creativity. Creativity as a tool to use when needed, not as a replacement for all normal methods. Commandant Threlzon studied their proposal carefully. Her shell changed colors as she thought. She said they were proposing to teach cadets to be creative only when creativity was needed. Hana confirmed this was exactly right. Creativity was not a replacement for protocol. It was a supplement, a tool for when protocols were not enough. Commander Torval asked how they would prevent another situation like Essa's mistake. How could they be sure cadets would actually use good judgment? Hana admitted they could not prevent all mistakes. Learning involves making errors, but they could minimize problems by restructuring their teaching. She showed a new scenario design. A ship has a minor power problem. Standard diagnostic procedure works perfectly fine to fix it, but they would also provide equipment that could be used for creative alternative diagnostics. The correct answer would be to follow standard procedure. Cadets who overcomplicated things would fail the exercise, just like Essa did. Jiho explained they would teach that creativity without judgment is dangerous, just as dangerous as rigidity without flexibility. Both extremes lead to bad decisions. The council members talked among themselves quietly. Hana watched their faces carefully. She had gambled on honesty instead of defending the program. Now she would learn if that gamble worked. Finally, Commandant Threlzon spoke. She said Hana's willingness to admit the program's problems showed good judgment. However, the council had concerns about continuing without proof that these changes would work. Hana's heart sank. This sounded like they were about to cancel the program, but Threlzon continued. She said the program would continue under new conditions. Commander Torval would serve as an oversight advisor. He would review their teaching materials to ensure proper balance. The program would extend from 12 weeks to 16 weeks. This would give time for the new protocol assessment module. Every cadet would need to pass a comprehensive evaluation before getting credit. The evaluation would test both creative problem-solving and appropriate protocol selection. It was not a complete victory. The oversight would make things harder and slower, but it was not cancellation either. They could work with these conditions. Hana formally accepted the terms. She apologized to Essa for putting her in a position to fail. She said they took full responsibility for the inadequate curriculum design. Velthar said adaptive thinking was valuable, but it must be balanced with judgment, discipline, and respect for proven methods. His tone was less hostile than before. Hana agreed. After the hearing ended, the four humans walked in silence. Finally, Taeyang spoke. He said that was terrifying. Minji said it was necessary. They had been so focused on teaching creativity that they forgot to teach wisdom. That mistake was their responsibility. Jiho said having Commander Torvald's oversight might actually help. He would catch blind spots they had from being too close to the material. Hana was quiet. She thought about Essa and how they enabled her mistake by not giving better guidance. Hana said they needed to talk to all their cadets. Explain what happened and why. The students needed to understand that the instructors failed them by not being clear about limitations. Minji added they needed to redesign the entire curriculum. Not just add one module, but truly restructure everything to integrate protocol assessment throughout. Taeyang summarized their situation. They had 4 weeks to completely rebuild a program they developed over months. They would work under enhanced supervision. The faculty was skeptical and now had concrete proof they could make serious mistakes. Jiho confirmed that was correct. Hana laughed, but it sounded slightly hysterical. She said the ironic part was that this was exactly the kind of impossible challenge they taught others to handle, and they almost failed it themselves by being too rigid in their approach.